A young woman who had come to a small town on business decided to stay in a run-down cheap hotel on the outskirts of the city to save money. As she unpacked her things in her room, she heard a knock on the door. She opened the door, but there was no one there. She looked out into the corridor, no one was there. The girl decided she must have imagined it. She closed the door and continued to settle in. Soon there was another knock on the door. This time, when the girl opened the door, there was a middle-aged woman in a thin red robe behind it. She was in tears. The woman told the surprised girl that her door had accidentally slammed shut when she stepped out for a minute. The girl sympathized with her and agreed to go downstairs and get a spare key from the concierge. However, when the girl went down in the elevator, there was no one at the reception desk. The girl pressed the call button and waited. After a while, the concierge appeared, and the girl asked him if she could get a spare key for another room. The concierge asked, "Why do you need this?" "A woman knocked on my door," she explained. "She accidentally locked herself out of her room and is embarrassed to come down. You see, she's wearing only a thin red robe." "How is that possible? There's only one guest staying in our hotel tonight, and that's you." "That can't be," exclaimed the girl. "It must be her." "Who her?" "You see, a few years ago, there was a tragedy at our hotel. One woman rented a room for the night, the same room you're staying in tonight. She had divorced her husband a couple of days earlier and wanted to die. But she was insane, so she wanted everyone in the hotel to die with her. She had a multi-shot pistol and plenty of rounds for it. Dressed in a white robe, the woman went floor by floor, shooting people. Before she was killed, she shot so many people that her white robe turned red from their blood. Since then, guests staying on this floor occasionally claimed to see her." The girl turned pale and was speechless with horror. The concierge, however, laughed and, stepping out from behind the counter, pointed to the blood-stained hole in his stomach. A married couple lived together, and they had a young son. Even before the birth of their son, the couple's relationship was quite shaky. Over the years, the house was filled with arguments between the father and mother. Their fights became more heated, and they constantly talked about divorce. Eventually, for the sake of their son, they continued to live together, but their arguments became even more intense. By the time their son turned 5, they had grown to hate each other. One night, after putting their son to bed, the couple began to argue again. The father flew into such a rage that he killed his wife. When he came to his senses and realized what he had done, he began to hide the body. He took his wife's body to the garage and placed it in the trunk of the car. Then he drove to the mountains. Under the cover of night, he hoisted his wife's body onto his back and carried it to the nearest swamp. He threw her into the putrid waters and watched as the body sank into the murky mud. As dawn broke, he returned home and took a shower. But no matter how much he scrubbed himself, he couldn't rid himself of the terrible, nauseating smell of the swamp. He slept for a few hours, and when he woke up, he began to think about what he would say if his son asked where his mother was. He decided to tell the boy that his mother had moved away to stay with her sister for a while. However, when the son woke up, he didn't mention his mother at all. He just looked at his father, saying nothing. The man thought that the boy could smell the swamp odor from where he buried his mother. He grabbed an air freshener and started spraying it around the house, hoping to mask the unpleasant smell. But it only made him feel worse, and he began to feel sick. Several hours passed, and the little boy watched television in the living room. The father became worried. Every time he entered the room, he saw his son looking at him with a puzzled expression on his face. This made the father even more nervous, thinking that he was developing paranoia. He began to ponder. Maybe the boy knows what happened, he thought. Perhaps the boy heard him killing his mother. If his son knew what he had done, maybe he should kill him too. The father entered the room where his son was still watching television. "Do you want to ask me something?" he said. The boy paused for a few seconds. then replied, "Yes." "Is it about your mother?" the father asked. "Yes," the boy said. "I think you're wondering where she is," the father said. "No," the boy said. "I'm wondering why Mom's face is so pale and why you've been carrying her on your back all day." Heading to Grandpa's. "Yeah, my parents want to dump me off in the middle of nowhere." "Grandpa, I've never seen my grandfather in my life, and now I have to spend the whole summer with him." "But that's just the tip of the iceberg. My grandpa lives in a small estate near some village and runs a funeral business. The cemetery is right next to his house." "Fantastic." Grandpa himself looks like an old necromancer, a gray beard covering his chest, a black tattered woolen cloak, a sharp nose. "At least he's always smiling at me, otherwise I'd think he was going to eat me." Heading up to my room on the second floor, I realized that it's always dark and cold in this mansion. Not a grandpa, but a gargoyle. Everything seems so gloomy, right? Like I'm in a horror movie. Oh no, that's not even the strangest part. At sunset, Grandpa would bolt the doors with a huge latch and shut the windows with metal shutters, strictly forbidding anyone to go outside. Old paranoid. To my grandfather's great regret, I'm a rebel by nature. And extremely curious. At around 2 in the morning, I unlocked one of the shutters and jumped out the window, taking a bunch of keys from the hallway with me. I had a goal. In the middle of the cemetery stood a small mausoleum, through the barred door of which I could see a stone tomb and a wide pillar behind it. Picking the right key, I opened the door and stepped inside. Creepy. Why did I even come here? I'll take a quick look around and back to bed. Those were my thoughts. They immediately dispersed when I peeked behind the pillar. There was a large metal door, secured with 3 bolts, each adorned with a huge barn lock. Well, it seems I'll have to take a look inside, since I came here for a reason. After fumbling for a few minutes with the massive key ring, I found the 3 I needed. Behind the door was a wide arch leading downstairs. Carefully descending the stairs, I illuminated my path with the display of my mobile phone. Stop. I hear sounds. Mice? Most likely. I go down further and see a small hall in front of me, in the middle of which sat someone facing me. Slightly hunched, about 2 meters tall, if not more. Upon closer inspection, I realized he was eating a corpse. And it wasn't a person. He had grayish skin, long sharp nails, and a hairy face. I started to feel nauseous. My legs began to weaken, and my consciousness became blurry. It seems I was about to faint. Quietly and quickly, I went back upstairs, closed the door, locked one shutter, and passed out. I hear someone's voice. I open my eyes. It's Grandpa, looking grimly at me. Behind him, the sunrise is already splashing. It's morning. "Well, grandson, I see you already know, and there's nothing to hide from you. At least you're alive." Grandpa smiled and told me the story. A couple of decades ago, there was a strange man living in the neighboring village, hardly talking to anyone. One day, he burst out of his house, roaring like a wild animal, and started attacking everyone he met. The men decided to tie him up and lock him somewhere, and the most suitable place for this was my catacombs under the mausoleum, with sturdy doors. Some said the guy went crazy, and the local deacon claimed he was possessed. The next day, they decided to check on him, but when they went downstairs, they found that he had been digging up graves and eating corpses. In short, they decided to leave him there, as no one could help him anymore. But a month later, he somehow managed to escape and started running around the village again, biting some old lady. The men barely managed to subdue him. When they brought him back, we realized how he escaped the wooden door that used to be there was broken down to the roots. When we went inside, we found that all the corpses he had found had been eaten. Apparently, hunger makes him stronger. Realizing this, we decided to set up a funeral bureau, where we took orders for funerals and dug up graves at night, dumping the bodies in the catacombs. So all those graves you see around, they're not real. There are no bodies in them. Years went by. This cannibal changed beyond recognition. He's no longer human. He's an evil creature that only thirsts for human flesh.